Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Too Fit Podcast. I'm Jake.
No, you're not.
I'm Josh.
And we are the Too Fit Guys.
We are the Too Fit Guys, hosts of the Too Fit Podcast.
That's right.
I had someone last night where we were at a run shop, called me Jake, called you Josh.
Really?
Yeah.
What a compliment.
Yeah.
Did you tell him
Yeah,
thank you?
it was. I did. I said, it happened more than you think, but
Yeah.
we actually get Drake and Josh a lot.
Yeah.
The Disney show.
Freaking Drake.
Yeah.
Ruined our life.
Anyway, so got a new episode out, and if you're new to the Too Fit Podcast, we bring on guests across lifestyle, performance, nutrition, all in that realm to help you elevate your health and performance. And today's guest is right on par with that.
Yeah, today is no different. We have on Justin Murphy of Justin Murphy Nutrition. And honestly, it was just a breath of fresh air. You know what I mean? Just because I feel like you can get so lost in what specific diet is best for me or people in general, what's best for my performance. There's the keto diet, there's the intermittent fastings, there's paleo, vegetarian, all across the board. People will swear by every single one of them, right? But Justin's really just like, hey man, it's all personal. There's a million ways to reach the goals that you want to reach, and we can get you there.
Yeah, I love it. You're right. He was very kind of, open-ended. He wasn't he didn't really put your nutrition in a box,
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're going to do what works for you, and then we're just going to adapt as we go. It's more about creating the right nutrition plan for life than it is like, hey, we're going to diet, or this is the, of course he works with some athletes and stuff that they have much more strict goals and
Sure.
and guidelines based on competition and stuff. But it's a great discussion, and I think it's going to definitely be a breath of fresh air for the listeners.
Yeah, I know it was for me. And yeah, we get into all those things. It gives opinions on, all those different kinds of diets and nutritional, techniques and stuff like that. So it was nice and interesting just to pick his brain, and really a self-taught guy. And really enjoyed it. I think they will too.
Yeah, I liked some of the kind of testimonial he shared from some of his clients that he's had on reverse dieting. I think that a lot of people are quite sure about that one. And we covered, like you said, some of the trendy ones out there right now with keto and intermittent fasting. But the reverse dieting was really interesting. I think people would be pretty curious about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think you'll get a lot out of it. Go ahead and buckle up, and we'll bring on Justin Murphy.
All right, Justin, thanks for joining us, man.
What's going on?
Welcome to Too Fit HQ. We're glad to finally have you, dude.
Yes,
It's been
sir.
a while.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Excited to finally make it out to Fort Worth. It's like my first trip traveling to Oklahoma.
It's not that bad, right? Technically, you're not a local because of the rivalry between Fort Worth and Dallas.
Yeah,
but,
true.
We'll accept you. We'll accept you today. So,
Well, luckily Jimmy invited me in too, so I'll pay him a trip too.
So tell us about this new venture you got going. Just started 4 months ago, new business. Give us a spiel.
Yeah, so 4 months ago, I basically decided to go all in on my dreams and, finally take the leap, take the jump. It had been something that I'd thought about for a really long time, but, to be honest, I just basically kept feeding myself with all these, I don't know if I can cuss, but bullshit excuses, right? I had this thing in my head where I was like, I don't want to start a business till I'm 30. I don't want to start a business till I work for XYZ, all these different things. And I think really what finally happened is I had a mentor that came into my life, and he basically called me out on all of it. And he gave me an opportunity to say, hey, if you decide to make the jump and go all in, I'll support you, I'll mentor you, and I'll get you to a point where you'll be able to, actually afford to pay for the mentoring services. And so that's what we did. I was like, screw it, I'm doing it. It didn't feel right. It was so scary. I had the support of my wife, which was amazing. And looking back on it now, I think to myself, I'm like, man, 5 months ago, if I wouldn't have made the decision to go all in then, I never would have done it.
Yeah.
Because a few weeks ago, I just found out that my wife was pregnant.
Wow.
So it's just amazing. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
It could have changed the decision a little bit.
I think it would have. I truly think it would have. I mean, I don't think that I would have. I was so scared to do it. If I knew that I was having a kid on the way, there's no way.
Yeah.
So, and my biggest fear in life is regret. So,
For sure.
It's a blessing. I mean, I think back on it now, and I'm like, it's just so funny how, God works, how this world, whatever your plan is, that master plan you have for yourself, like it's not going to happen. Like be ready to deviate from it and just know that there's an ultimate plan. So fast forward 4 months in now, my whole plan was like, I hate the meal plans and templates and apps and calculators and all that. I hate it. I think that I truly believe that like individualized coaching is extremely important. I think that the farther and farther we get away from human interaction, the more it just scares me, to be honest. I think that like humans that are trying to, we're in an obesity epidemic, right? And so like there's so many people in this world that need help with nutrition. The information's out there everywhere, but it's like the magic's in the application and the magic's in that individualized coaching and having a coach with you every step of the way that you feel like is actually like on your team and cares and can send you a text message and get back an answer that same day rather than sending in an email and getting a response a week later or whatever.
So how's the feedback on that been in this instant gratification society we live in now, where people just want that get fit quick,
Right.
That's why the apps and all that exist, right? Because that's all I need is this app, and it's gonna tell me exactly what to do, and it's as easy as that. So how's that been?
Yeah, no, and that's that's what we're battling against, right? Yeah. But I think the people that come to us, I think what they realize is that they've tried all that stuff, right? Like they're sick and tired of like doing the crash diets, doing the fad diets, going to extremes, and maybe getting short-term results, but always bouncing back, like never finding a place of balance and sustainability.
Yeah.
And so that's one reason we don't even put pricing online. I don't want people shopping prices based on what they think nutrition coaching is, because a lot of people don't know what nutrition coaching is, at least the way that we carry it out. So it's awesome.
Right. In your background, before you even started this business, you have a long history with nutrition, nutritional coaching. You highlight maybe just some of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of what led you to the business.
Yeah, that story is actually, it's probably the best one. It's the most motivating one. And me looking back as a 17, 18-year-old kid, like if somebody out there hears this story, like I think that'll really impact their life. So I was the kid in high school, like I played sports my whole life. Like when I was in high school, I was playing football, track, powerlifting, everything, right?
Yeah.
And I was the kid that cared so much about being popular that then it led into, getting involved in drugs and getting involved in just really living my life in a way that was nothing but negative. Like looking at how I am now versus then is like a complete transformation. Everybody from my hometown, they're like, what happened to you? Like how? So long story short, I got a scholarship to go play football. Went out there, played, got into some trouble out there, and got thrown in jail, and I'd never been in jail before. I honestly, when the police came to arrest us, I thought that I was just going to get like a ticket or something. I had no idea. That same night I got put into a jail cell with a guy that was in there for stabbing 2 people.
Wow.
So, that night I obviously was, in tears and thinking, oh my God, my life's over and all of this stuff. And I was not religious at the time at all. And that night, that was like the moment that changed my whole entire life, because I literally reached for a Bible. I read the Bible the whole entire night. The next morning I got bailed out. So I was only in for 24 hours. I'm, not that hard in the paint.
Yeah. You weren't victim number 3 for that guy, right?
Yeah. Right. Oh God. Thank God. Well, there's a whole nother story on that. I'll go to the, but yeah, so I woke up that next morning, to my surprise, like my parents are great. Like they came all the way up to Kansas, like bailed me out, and just facing them though, like walking out of jail was the worst thing ever. I had 3 little brothers and sisters back at home that all looked up to me. I was an only child till I was 8. So I basically left Texas, left my hometown as like the popular kid, the homecoming king, like the, all that stuff. Right. And I came back and people were like, you're a piece of shit. You're worthless. Like you suck. Like I don't like you. Like I literally was like, it was the lowest low. And then facing my parents, seeing the look on their face, the tears that it brought to their eyes, and then coming back to my brother and sisters and knowing, the effect that it had on them. And so I just made, that night I made a promise. I was like, look, if you give me a second chance, I promise I will shift my whole entire life from this selfishness and, just doing everything for me and the money and all that stuff. And I'll transfer it all into like making my sole life mission to help as many people in this world as I can. And I didn't know what the avenue was going to be then, but came back to 24-hour fitness, or came back home, got a job at 24-hour fitness, folding towels, making like minimum wage. Had no idea. I was so lost. Like it was just bad. It was a bad point in my life. And I at that moment, one of the trainers was like, "Hey, you want to work out with us one day?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I worked out with him, and he was like, "Why don't you be a trainer?" And I was like, "What the hell is a trainer?" And long story short, I went to go to take personal training certification. I paid $700. Like for me at that time, it was like my life savings, right? Like, and failed the exam. So after being at my lowest low, then taking a step and furthering myself, like personal development, then I failed again. And so at that moment I was like, man, I don't know if like, I just don't think this is really like the route for me. Like I know I've always been in fitness and all that, but maybe this isn't for me. Got some motivation and retook it a month later, passed it, and from that point led me into personal training. Did well there. Like the last month I was there, like I think I grossed like $24,000 at 24-hour fitness, and then made like $7, right? And I was like, oh my God, wrong. I got to get out of here. Yeah.
Something's off here.
So I left. I took clients with me. That's when I started getting into CrossFit. I coached CrossFit. I worked at a CrossFit gym for 5 years. I fell in love with it. I competed in CrossFit, qualified for regionals, competed at regionals. But I always knew that the biggest missing link was nutrition. Yeah. I did the personal training thing. I did the coaching thing. I had the opportunity in school to either do nutrition or kinesiology, and all the personal trainers were doing kinesiology. So I made the move to go to Texas Women's University because they had nutrition and UNT didn't.
Nice.
So I was, the weird guy in class. I was the only guy like at that school, right? But it was a great program and I enjoyed it. And during all of that time, I kind of did like the untraditional route, right? So I was like working in the field and in school the whole time. And that's why it took 6 years to graduate instead of 4. But I would have never done it any different because it allowed me to have all of the application and real world experience working with clients, and then also being able to see, really how, I don't want to say worthless the nutrition degree was, but just how outdated all the information was that I was learning, and how really they didn't teach you how to actually coach people. They taught you how to, do research and things like that. And so that led into me, saying, hey, like I really want to start a company. Before it was like, I want to start a gym. And then I had the mindset of like, well, I don't want to start a gym. There's way too many gyms. And then I started thinking about like starting an online nutrition coaching company. And I was like, there's so many nutrition coaches out there. I just literally had the scarcity mindset, right? And what my mentor kind of helped me develop was getting more into that abundancy mindset and realizing that like, no, like there are so many people in this world that need help. Like you need to become a nutrition coach, and you and you and you, like we need more and more and more, right? Like until we get past this hump of where we're at in this world, like the need is there. So from there, I was like, I had the mentorship in place. Like I still was scared and I still didn't know the future or anything like that. But I just knew that I wanted to build a team of badass individuals that go out in this world and help as many people as we possibly can. And I didn't want to be led by money or anything like that. I literally wanted it to be based on impact. So even how we look at like billing and client numbers and all that now, like I don't even, of course I look at the numbers, right? But like I look at in terms of how many people are we impacting. And so since then I've kind of started building the team, started linking together like-minded individuals. And it's just amazing what happens when you set out on a mission, you go all in on the mission, and then it attracts everybody else that believes in that same mission. And before you know it, you have a tribe that is going out there and actually creating like real impact in this world.
It's an awesome story.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
God's giving you a great testimony, man. That's awesome. And I know you talked about like regrets is kind of your biggest fear in life, and that's kind of one of mine too. And the only regret I have about 2Fit and anything else, we've talked about this before, is not starting it sooner. You know what I mean? I just think about all that other time that I could have been learning or that much more, ahead of where we are now. That's really the only regret.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say the same thing now being 4 months in. I'm like, man, why did I not start this a year ago? Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But, I think like you said, it's like we just don't know what that plan is, and the plan's going to be carried out, you know, on your timeline or not. And so I think, you know, now it's just seizing like every opportunity, and like me, like really being like super grateful for the opportunity. Cause you know, not everybody has the ability to go do this. Like I might not have had the ability if I would have found out a month sooner.
Sure.
So I'm super grateful and blessed and thankful and just happy and excited.
Yeah.
So
awesome, man. So there's so many different diets out there, right? And everybody has tried one, or you've heard somebody try one. You got a friend that tried the carnivore diet, the keto diet, vegan diet, whatever it might be, and it worked for them, right? It's changed their whole life. And we can kind of dive into all those a little bit later on and kind of get your opinion on them. But what's your overall nutritional outlook? What's your
philosophy?
Philosophy.
Yeah,
I got you, bro.
Thank you.
Pound it. Yeah. So I mean, there are so many diets out there, right? And you know, it's like that's the beauty of like individualization. It's like if you want to do this diet, great. Like my job as a coach is to educate you and make sure that you understand everything about that diet. And I might advise you, you know, for this point in your life and what you do from a training standpoint and all these things, like, you know, maybe this isn't the best route to go, but at the same time, like if this is what you want to do, like I will support you and I'll make sure that I educate you on, you know, the good things, the bad things, what to watch out for, what to look for. But our philosophy really is just like, at the end of the day, if I sat here and got the creators of every last one of these diets and I put them into a room, they probably would all yell at each other, say mine's better, you know, whatever, for like 10 minutes. And then we would write all the diets up on a whiteboard and we would say there's two things that ultimately matter with all of these diets, right? And if we start to look into that, it's like, look, the quality of the food that you're eating matters and the quantity of the food that you're eating matters. Like the people that try to go on like one end of the spectrum, like if it fits your macros, right? And obviously speaking and saying that they're going to extremes, like absolutely you can change body composition and all of that, like by hitting your macros and eating donuts and pizza or whatever. But like long-term longevity, health risk, all of that, like it is going to cause issues later on. And then if I look at something like, you know, from a purely quality standpoint, like maybe I'm going like Whole30 or something or paleo or whatever, it's like, yes, they're emphasizing really, really good quality foods, which 100% we have to have, but you also have to eat them in the right quantities to support your lifestyle. Because without that, I mean, we all know if I put somebody on a 500 calorie diet of salmon and broccoli and a 5,000 calorie diet of salmon and broccoli, nobody's arguing about food quality, but like I guarantee you, if you eat 5,000 calories of whatever, most people are probably going to gain weight with that. Whereas 500 calories is going to cause, you know, a host of other issues. So that's kind of it. It's eating really good quality foods in quantities that support your lifestyle the majority of the time. And that majority of the time piece is the fact of like building a healthy relationship with food and your body and understanding that, look, like you don't have to be perfect to get results. Like nobody ever got fat by eating one bad meal. Nobody ever got shredded by eating one good meal. I like Mexican food and margaritas and tequila shots just as much as everybody else does. But it's just about finding balance. And like, I think buying into to like playing the long game and having the understanding that like, I know that you can be super strict for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, but ultimately you have to find balance and you have to find a plan, if you will, that will work for you long term.
Sure.
So. Yeah, and you touched on one there that I'd like to highlight is that if it fits your macros. Can you just talk a little bit more? Because I find a lot of people aren't really sure what that diet is, although it is kind of spreading and has spread around the interwebs quite a bit. Sure. But where you can eat, you know, you explain it, but Cheetos and pizza and all that stuff, if it fits their macros.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's be honest here. Let's ask the question. Eating Cheetos and pizza and donuts and all that all the time, does that really sound healthy to you?
No.
No, common sense, absolutely, of course not. You know,
yeah. But when I market it that way, that sounds super sexy. Oh, I can eat all this stuff and still get results? Like, of course. So I think, you know, if you look into the people that are doing flexible dieting lifestyle, or flexible dieting, like how it was supposed to be done, you know, the premise behind it is right? It's like, hey, 80% of the time, eat really good quality food. The other 20% of the time, you know, eat whatever, enjoy yourself, right? But it's always trying to make sure that regardless of the foods, that you're hitting your quote unquote macros, so your proteins and carbs and fats in the ratios that you think, or the calculator thinks that you should eat. So that's really it. I mean, it's really just like, hey, you can eat whatever foods you want, just make sure you hit your macros with it.
Right, and a lot of them kind of like justify that diet through the argument of, well, if I eat this source of a carbohydrate and this source of a carbohydrate, my body doesn't know that that's a donut and that's a sweet potato. It's still carbohydrate, which is completely false.
Yeah.
Completely false of how your body reacts to those two different types of foods, even though they each might contain 30 grams of carbohydrate.
Right.
You know, completely different.
And I think that's a great point. I think that's a point that kind of goes back to like, everybody asks, they're like, what matters more, quantity or quality? And I'm like, no, stop. You got it wrong. Like, they both matter, you know? And so that's like with If It Fits Your Macros, it's like, dude, like food quality matters, you know, and food quantity matters. Like both of those things matter. And I think if you try to go on one extreme, it's ultimately like long-term, it's probably, I don't know, it might work out. I don't know. I mean, right. Like that's the thing I love about individualization is that like, we don't have a certain methodology. We don't have one particular diet that we believe in. We believe that every last person in this world is completely different. And you have your own dietary needs, you have your own lifestyle needs, you have your non-negotiables, you have your exercise needs, you know, whatever. And let's not forget, you're going to get sick, you're going to get injured, you're going to have to travel, you're going to have crazy life events that come up that need to be tailored. And so, you know, if I sit here and I make up our perfect game plan or whatever and hand it to you, I'm also going to tell you that it's probably going to change 50 times, you know, like it just is what it is. And that's the difference in making a template or a meal plan and giving it to somebody and saying, hey, good luck, versus, hey, here's our plan and I'm going to help you every step of the way to get you there.
Yeah, you made a good point there, because I've heard Dr. Andy Galpin talk about training. You know, he says if I came to you and told you that I was going to stick you on one training regimen for the rest of your life, you call me crazy. He says, so why do we think the same thing when it comes to nutrition? You know, when you're saying we're going to change that up 50 times, that's probably what you need and your body needs.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I love him. He's phenomenal. But yeah, I think he brings up and I think this is actually the direction where a lot of people are going. Is he brings up a great point in terms of periodization, right? Like everybody that's out here creating workout programs, like, you know, they're periodizing the programming. Sure. And so I think what we're starting to hear more of now is like, okay, well, what about nutritional periodization, right? We work with a lot of people in the CrossFit space, and so, you know, looking into a whole entire year for them is kind of like what we like to do. You know, most of them, their CrossFit games is like the open, right? And they want to perform their best in the open. And I'm like, great. Well, why are you sitting here trying to lose weight 1 month before the open? Right? Like if the time to focus on aesthetics and body composition changes and all that, like, let's finish the open. Let's give your body a little bit of time to recover. Let's address those aesthetic body composition goals that you have. And once we hit those, now let's start, again, periodization. Let's change you and start moving you forward into those performance goals so that you look good, feel good going into the open, and you perform the best that you can. Whereas some people look at it the other way, or, you know, they don't think about it in a year-long process. They just think about it in terms of like the immediate.
Yeah.
So we do the same thing we do it with athletes. We do it with everybody. I'm like, hey, like when we first started working together, I'm like, when are you taking vacations this year? When are your travel trips? You know, when is this? When is that? And then we can start to look at a year and start to think about, all right, well, this could be how we could lay it out. This could be our game plan for the year, rather than, you know, whatever other ideas they had. So
that's a good point. Going back to the If It Fits Your Macros, so I showed this guy to Josh the other day. You ever heard of this dude named King Stratz on Instagram?
I'm sure I've seen him at some point.
This guy knows. So he found the If It Fits Your Macros things, I guess, back in college is what he said. And then he was already doing some intermittent fasting, just didn't like eating during the day. And anyhow, this is all led up to him. He now just eats one meal a day. It's always super late, but he still eats. I mean, he's a big guy, so he still gets all of his macros in that one meal. So it's 3,500 to 4,000, sometimes 5,000 calories in a meal. And it is whatever. He's putting on Cheetos, making Cheeto nachos, and biscuits with all sorts of stuff in there, gummy bears, etc. And Josh was like, man, that cannot be good for you. But the dude's shredded, right? It seems like it works for him. And
Fairly, yeah.
I don't know where to put it. I don't know what to do with it. You know, what's
I don't know if the video's real, if it's a magic trick. I'm not really sure because it's like a plate of food the size of this table. I don't know where it goes.
He's putting in work every day, you know.
Well, and that's what's interesting, right? It's like people are like, well, how many times a day should I eat? And I'm like, I don't know. How many times a day do you want to eat? Like consistently, what works best for your schedule? If you can sit here and throw down all of your calories for the day, like hit your macros for the day with one meal, like especially being that big, eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, like that's hard. And like there's always going to be these one-off situations of people that are crazy strict, but like talking like who we're targeting is like the world, right? Like I want to change the world in a way that obesity epidemic, like that just makes no sense to me. Like why? Why? You know? Yeah. And so going back to your point, like, yes, you can do it. I want to catch that guy though in 50 years.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because it's impressive, no doubt. And you got to think there's probably some big benefits hormonally going on from the fasting that long, like 22 of 23 hours. Yeah. I mean, it's probably taking 3 hours to eat. I don't know.
No insulin happening, a lot of growth hormone.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's really taxing on the liver to release that much glucagon every night on that protein because he's eating 150, 200 grams of protein in a sitting.
Yeah, probably close to
you know what I mean? So like that's very taxing on a daily basis, but then he's probably getting a lot of, really nice cell turnover.
That's other times if you've been able to absorb it all.
It's interesting to how he could process that because you can only digest efficiently so much protein per hour. So I'm with you. I'm kind of like to see what he looks like and under the hood.
Like, everybody out here these days is like it's like marketing, right? So what's sexier marketing? Hey, you need to eat chicken and broccoli every single day, or hey, you can eat whatever the hell you want. Like it's again, I don't think that it's wrong, or I don't think that it can't be done, or anything like that. Like I think 100% the guy's proven it. But like, let's just all record his Instagram handle. We'll reach out in 50 years and let's see what's up. Like who knows? Maybe he'll still be shredded eating donuts and all that.
The great king.
We'll throw him into the. Yeah, I mean, I'll clap for him then too. I don't know. Like it just, I think for most people, it's just like, guys, I highly doubt you can honestly sit here and say that you feel really, really good every day eating hot Cheetos and pizza and donut. Like our bodies have amazing adaptation principles, and sure, I'm sure they, adapt. That's the same reason why 70% of the population walks around feeling like shit every day and doesn't even know that they could actually be feeling better. I have clients all the time that are like, oh my God, I just can't believe, how bad I used to walk around feeling all the time. And I had no idea that I could even feel this good.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because again, our bodies are amazing and they have the ability to adapt to that. So
yeah, that's a great point. That guy might, after a year or two doing this, he might just be a machine. I mean, who knows? It's going to go one way or another for him.
Yeah. I don't know. I know he's the exception. I just wanted to get your thoughts on him.
I gotta look that guy up.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive nonetheless.
I saw some video of some guy. I mean, this thing like went viral. Maybe that was the guy, but he was he would eat one time a day, and like he actually would cook all of his food. So even though it was like pizza and all that, like he was like making his own dough and all that. I don't know if y'all saw that.
Could be the same guy.
Yeah,
could be.
One platter Jake showed me. This guy had like I don't know, it was like 58 Eggos. On this plate with bacon and syrup and eggs and chicken, and it was like,
there is no way. Like when I was competing in CrossFit, I was eating like 5,000-6,000 calories a day.
Wow,
there is no way I could eat 5,000 or 6,000 calories in one sitting. No way. Not even if I tried as hard as I could.
That's what my thought. Like, even if I didn't eat all day, I still couldn't eat that in one sitting.
But did y'all see the Johnny Chestnut? They took somebody. It was so funny. Somebody took a food label and inputted all of Johnny Chestnut's like hot dog eating numbers into that.
Oh my God.
I forget what the numbers were, but it was just, I was dying. It was hilarious.
Like 75?
Something crazy like that. If you look at like if you look at the food label, you're just like, oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah. I don't know how you train for that, but
then you look, but that's actually a great correlation. Like look at him and how much food he can eat in one sitting, like versus most people in the world. And then now we think about, swole guy that eats pizza all day or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. It's like, I think that, your body can adapt. It's just, what are the implications long term?
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are some basic guidelines and principles that you lay out for all your clients? That's just a good, because I know, everything's personalized, but there's got to be some general, concepts that you abide by.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we look into that a lot of people don't really think about, traditionally people, they base their results off of the number on the scale, which we all know is a broken model and really a lot of the times causes more psychological damage than anything else. And so we look at something called biofeedback as another data point in, we of course we weigh in, of course we do body composition pictures, all that, but biofeedback is something that we look into from the assessment period and then all the way through the process. So what that is it's, let's start off, how many hours of sleep are you sleeping each night? Out of that sleep, are you having issues falling asleep or waking up throughout the night? From there, we'll dive into, on average, do you have high energy levels, medium energy levels, low? Do you have those, do you wake up in the morning like ready to go crush your day, or are you hitting snooze 3-4 times? Are you having the midday crashes, right? From there, we dive into like digestive. So how many bowel movements a day are you having on average? I'll have people, like no joke, come to me and they're like, a day? I have a bowel movement like once every 4 days. Oh, no. I'm like, cool, red flag, right? Like, so that sex drive, like all the time, people get on the phone, they're like, oh my God, you're right. Like my sex drive has tanked over the past year. Like again, red flag. We'll look into their mood. We'll look into their stress levels, their hunger response, their workouts and their recovery from workouts. So we look into all those biofeedback factors, and a lot of the times that's sometimes like if there's red flags that are coming up, that might be a starting place.
Sure.
So when people, everyone's like, hey, what diet should I follow? What supplements should I take? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, hold on. Let's look at like the foundation that like has to be in play before we start looking at these other things. So I think sleep is one of the most important things.
For sure.
Anybody that's like not getting at least 7-8 hours of sleep, like we've got to start working on that. Even if it's, hey, like let's go to bed 30 minutes earlier, like each night this week. Like just do it for 7 days and let me see how you feel, right? From there, it's food quality. So we start teaching about the quality of food and then eating it in the right quantities to support their lifestyle and their goals. I would say those are probably the 3 like biggest things. And then from there, we start looking into, okay, like most people don't know how to grocery shop like efficiently. Most people don't know how to cook. Most people don't even cook in their own homes anymore. Yeah. Which is, it's sad. I run into so many clients, and it's like, if they grew up and their parents cooked in the kitchen and taught them about it and made it a big deal, like they're so much better off. Imagine if we imagine if it was a requirement to make all kids, like through elementary school, middle school, high school, like learn all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like what would the world look like then? So those are the big pieces. Sleep's huge, the food quality, the food quantity, how much alcohol are you consuming? Looking into like from a training standpoint, are you overtraining or not training at all? Yeah. And then we look into supplements, obviously, water intake. Like those are probably some of the basic stuff.
Do you have a general like macro breakdown, or is that vary widely for most people?
So one thing we do, I feel that I don't see a lot of people do is like, of course we know there's all these macro calculators out there. Like everybody knows, well, not everybody, but a lot of people know how to calculate your macros based on formulas that have been around, for a really long time. But I think what a lot of people forget to do is look, just because you're supposed to be at this set macros because of your age and activity level or whatever, right? Like, what have you been doing? Yeah. Right? Because if you come to me, like, so that's what we do first. We assess. Like, I want to see on average how many calories you're eating a day for 7 days. And like truth, not like, I want to see the real deal, like an honest assessment. And then from there also, on average, what are your macros looking like? So based on the assessment and based on where we think that they should be, then we start working them in that direction. And that's when we'll start to identify sometimes where, this metabolic adaptation you're starting to hear of people that have just essentially, train more and more and more and more and eat less and less and less and less. And before they know it, they're in a calorie deficit. Like it doesn't matter how much they work out or how little they eat, they're staying the same or even starting to gain weight. So if I do an assessment and we find out that somebody is currently already in a calorie deficit and they've just been gaining weight or staying the same or whatever, like that's when we have to start looking into, okay, like metabolic adaptation, like hormonal issues, like, do you need to go through a reverse dieting process? And for so many people, like reverse dieting is a very, very, very hard thing to go through psychologically. if you come to me and you want to lose weight and I tell you might have to gain a little bit of weight before I can get you to lose weight, again, not the sexiest thing to say.
So what do you mean by reverse dieting? They're eating more than they need to initially?
No, so reverse dieting would be like, let's say for instance, somebody, let's just example avatar client. So a 200-pound 50-year-old female comes to me and they're the typical one that has done every last diet under the sun. We do an assessment. They've been taking in 1,200 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day at 200 pounds. So obviously, clearly in a calorie deficit, and they've just been gaining weight.
Their body's holding it too, right?
It's basically like their body's ability to burn body fat used to be at whatever it was. And because of all the crash dieting, that number just keeps lowering. And they go to their doctor and they're like, the doctor don't believe them, right? Which they're with them for 5 minutes. So how could they? But they're like, I just can't lose weight. And they're like, you just need to work out more and eat less. Yep. I mean, that's like the common conversation. And there's just some people that, look, if you're working out more and more and eating less and less and nothing's happening, like maybe we might need to do the opposite, right? And so I'll have somebody that'll come to me at 1,000 calories and we got to slowly start reverse dieting them up. So if they have all these symptoms, most of the time when people have been doing the crash dieting and all that, like they'll have a host of symptoms. They'll have the sleep issues, they'll have the energy issues, the digestive issues, the sex drive, all that. And so if they start at 1,000, maybe we'll work them up to 1,200 for a week or two, and then to 1,400 for a week or two, and just slowly building them up to somewhere around maintenance level calories. Or maybe we might not even get close to maintenance level calories, but at least we pull that window up higher and higher. Because look, if you come to me at 1,000 calories and you want to lose weight, I'm not going to lower your calories even more, right? So I almost have to like rebuild your metabolism before I can start working you back into a deficit. Which they don't teach that in school.
No.
Reverse dieting? What the hell is that? I never heard of that. But I've had a lot of success with it. And reverse dieting's, I mean, it's huge. Like a lot of people have used it. And it's not for everybody. It's not like everybody needs it, but there are some people that they never ever would have thought of that. And that was the thing that finally got them past the plateau that they had been at for so long.
It's like putting your body in that abundance mindset. Right? Saying like, okay, I finally have enough calories. I can release some of these stores. You know what I mean? I don't have to hold on to everything because I don't know when the next meal is going to come or how much I'm getting. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's almost like, so I say this, anytime that somebody goes through a reverse diet process, there's like 3 types of responders. And so I'll see somebody that we call like a hyper responder, which it literally makes no sense. As their calorie increases, as it goes up, they actually start losing weight. So typically you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm eating more and I'm losing weight. So that's rare. Another really good scenario is what we call is basically when we start reverse dieting them up, their body weight just stays the same. So all these biofeedback symptoms, they start to improve and go away. And their body weight stays the same. Again, another good, if I can pull you up, I mean, there's reverse dieting stories all over the website and whatnot, but I mean, one of the recent girls, she was a CrossFit athlete, sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, waking up in the morning, training 3 hours of competitive CrossFit, eating 1,400, 1,500 calories a day, having the symptom list, basically red flagged for every single one of those. Within 3 months, we had reverse dieted her calories up almost 700. Her abs actually looked even better. All of those symptoms went away. Her sleep was like 10 times better. Feeling better in the gym. So it's just like our bodies, they can adapt. She had no idea that something was wrong with her. She had no idea that she was under fueling like that.
It was just normal.
She didn't feel it. But once we started she also didn't know what biofeedback was. She also hadn't been assessing any of these things. And she was also an athlete with athlete mindset. A lot of us are like, nothing's wrong with me. Like, I'm good. Like, right. And so I don't even think she realized it. And I think what would have happened eventually is, the hormones would have started being affected. I had people that come to me all the time that are, coming from the physique world, bikini model and whatever. And the ones that have like done this crazy crash dieting and haven't had a menstrual cycle in 8 months, infertility, like all of these things are super real. And a lot of people don't really realize the damage that can be done to people, bringing them into too far of a calorie deficit for too long and cardioing them to death, right? So it just goes to show, I mean, nothing that I think nothing that's been researched or nothing that we think to be true is necessarily always true. You know, like there's always one-off situations. There's always I think it just goes to show like everybody's different. Everybody has their own individual needs. And I think just being able to like recognize a situation like that and be able to educate them on what they need to do and why they need to do it, it's extremely hard. It really is. I mean, and most of the time, to be honest, it's females that have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge as a coach, I think, is the
females. I'm just kidding.
I almost said yes. No. What's funny is the majority of our clients are females, actually.
Yeah.
But no, it's the psychology, right? It's the mindset piece. Like I think people come to us looking for, you know, aesthetic or performance or health goals. And what they really get is they start shifting their mindset into that growth mindset and just wanting to become like the best version of themselves. So
I'd be interested to hear, after going through the formal education process at TWU, kind of at the same time with doing a lot of your own self-research and then other programs, right? Looking back at maybe the formal education piece, what were some of the biggest flaws in that kind of what's still being taught? And more on, like, I guess you could say mainstream. It's also still of the mindset of most people about what nutrition is or should be.
I had a really tough time in school. I got in a lot of arguments with teachers. It was hard. Halfway through school, I wanted to drop out. I realized very, very early that I was sitting here spending a lot of money for stuff that it was a lie, really. I mean, it was a system at which you know, especially like on the RD route, I knew very early I didn't want to deal that route because you got to do a 1 year like unpaid internship, like you know, just crazy stuff. I would have like at that time, like I was already making good money doing personal training, and I would have had to put all that on hold to do it. And then knowing, you know, when you go to be an RD and working in a hospital and really not getting to like actually coach people in nutrition, more so just following guidelines. But the biggest issues I see in the school is just it's outdated. Like every last one of these professors that are teaching you, like they do a phenomenal job at teaching you like the base level of, you know, science that needs to be had, right? Like, and so people that are getting on and becoming like Instagram coaches and whatever without any of that base science, like I definitely think that is a missing link, and that results in like a fundamental misunderstanding of a lot of things that do need to be learned. But outside of the basic science, no application. No other route other than you're going to go work for somebody else, or you're going to follow, you know, USDA guidelines. You're going to follow the food pyramid, you know, whatever. And it's just like, as we all know, and that's why nutrition is so like unregulated. I feel like, you know, there's no reason for you to have to go get a nutrition degree now. Like between the certifications that are out there and all of the knowledge that's out there, like it's schools behind. Even I'd be curious to see like the number one university in the nation and see what that nutrition program looks like, because TWU is number 12, I believe.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with most formal education is that they just teach you the facts. You know, they teach you the figures, but they don't teach you like how to think, like how to learn. You know, how to apply things, how to actually do it. You know what I mean? So even just in the few years we've done this business, I've learned so much more just being in the business and actually doing things than you do if you spent 4 years getting a business degree or an MBA, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the scary part. I think that just when you're young, you don't really know that. You know, it's like my mom and dad didn't even go to college, and so that was a big thing for me. Is like I want to be like the first to graduate or whatever. You know, it's just all these things that like I guess, you know, are expected or has been in our head, and then you get done with school and you're like, oh, now what? I mean, I remember 3 years ago I was walking across the stage, and I remember people, you know, that I graduated with are like, whew, the hard work's over. And I looked at them and I was like, interesting. Good luck, buddy. But that was the hardest part for me always. I mean, I was in the field, like I was in the field and I was in school, and it was very, very hard to finish, but I was like, I want to finish. Like, I don't want to be a quitter, you know, all that. So, yeah, just outdated and not enough teaching on application.
Yeah.
So, the carnivore diet. Go. Just kidding. I'm just hearing a lot.
I feel like I'm hearing
That's,
more about that lately. I think the biggest thing I had heard up to that point was like keto and intermittent fasting. I feel like that's what's talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like any diet. I mean, I'm just like, if carnivore diet, like if you want to go and do that, let's have a very, very honest conversation as to what your plan is. Like, you want to try the diet? Cool. Like, experiment. We're our own like science experiment. Like, 100%. But like long term, like, is that really what you're gonna do for the rest of your life? Like, that's literally the conversation every single time. And then from there, if they're like, yeah, I really do want to do it and learn it, phenomenal. Like, I'm gonna educate you. I'm gonna teach you more about this than you ever even wanted to learn. But it's just I don't know, the extremes, man. Like,
I know
it's hard.
I keep waiting for the latest thing to come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We did keto for like a year. And saw
we
good
experimented
results on it. But our problem with it was like, so I felt like I no longer felt hungry when I woke up in the morning. For one, was the biggest thing. I felt more mental clarity kind of throughout the day, less brain fog and stuff. But after a while, my training actually tanked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It took about a couple months to get there. It was all right when we were doing like some tri training and more endurance stuff. But if you're doing CrossFit or lifting and basketball, like high intensity stuff like that, like we'd have to stop and go get like a Powerade or something sometimes during basketball because your glucose would like tank. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and I think it's awesome. Well, let's unwrap this thing, man, because it is the sexy girl at the party right now. It really is, right? Like the keto diet. I mean, let's dive in. I mean, I want to if you're game, because we've done it, we've tried it. Even with the products we make, we test everything like blood markers, all that jazz, right? And I think with the awesome like capitalistic approach of individual learning, right, and individual organizations and groups teaching proper nutrition, and I think it's awesome. But the downside of some of that is where people that they kind of get glimpses of things, right, because information is so abundant that they're like, well, I can do that now, I know how, and they really don't yet. Right. That's not to say they can't learn, but a lot of these things that have a good approach and a good system get very bastardized, pretty quickly. And I think that's kind of what's happened to keto. Yeah. Because I think it has applications, absolutely. But I don't think that people should just be eating a ketogenic diet every day for the rest of their lives. I think it has amazing endurance support. I think it's great for cancer patients. I think it's great if, say, you're preparing for an exam in 6 weeks, and you want increased brain function. But from a day-to-day eating, I think it's, it can cause a lot of issues. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, there's a lot of great points. I mean, epilepsy, that's probably like the most researched one out there. Yeah. So it's like any diet. I think every diet has a place. Like, I think it just, again, it goes on, okay, well, who are we talking about? Like, what does their lifestyle look like? And is this the right application? So going on to keto, I mean, first off, the biggest thing I see in it is that most people think that they're doing keto and they're not really doing keto. I mean, I'm sorry, trying to eat 5% or less of your total intake each day coming from carbohydrates is extremely, extremely hard. And doing keto Monday through Friday and not doing keto on the weekend is not doing keto. And, it's just like, so like, if you really want to go to this crazy extreme and do a diet like keto, like, your nutrition knowledge, like this better not be your first rodeo. Like, keto is an extremely hard diet to follow consistently.
Mm-hmm. And I think you really need to look at what's going on under the hood. Like, I think before you enter that, you need to do some blood work. I was actually having this conversation with a member at our gym yesterday, and she was talking about keto, and she was like, well, what do you think about that versus some of these other diets? And I said, well, my thing on keto is that when you kind of get into this high fat, and ultra low carb for an extended period of time, it can have a much greater impact hormonally versus a lot of other diets. Like, if you just talk about paleo, we're just talking about good, clean, wholesome food for the majority of people, right? Right. But when you start talking about drastic macronutrient ratios, whether it's 90% carbs or 90% fat, it's going to really change what happens in your body, my body, his body, her body, right?
Absolutely.
And I think if you don't have a good look at where you are going into it, and then maybe some screenshots 60, 120 days in, where you could either pump the brakes or say, hey, maybe I discovered something that's really helping this performance or maybe helping me with this health issue, then I think it's actually a pretty risky thing to go into.
Well, and I think that was a great point. If you look at it as like, again, like let me do an assessment of myself before I just jump into something. And then let me also assess the way that I feel through the process. How many people do we talk to that are doing keto that are like, yeah, bro, I love keto and losing all this weight. I feel like shit, but it's cool. I mean, I lost like 30 pounds. I feel like shit every day. I don't sleep. Like, I don't even work out. I hate working out now.
Yeah.
But keto, bro.
You got the keto flu.
Or I'll have people, they'll come to me, they're like, I really enjoyed keto. I did it. I'm just, to be honest with you, I'm really starting to feel like shit now because of all of this like fat and like animal meats and I'm just like, again, man, like extremes. Like, why do you want to do that to yourself? You are making nutrition more complicated than it has to be.
That's the conclusion I came at with it. It's like, and I read somewhere, it's like the best diet out there is the one that you can stick to.
Jay got so frustrated with it.
I was like, man, I need some carbs back in my life,
Yeah, but to his point, and like even on our like 2Fit Instagram feed, we do these like Ask Us Anythings, and we'll tackle like one of the recent ones was like Ask Us Anything Keto,
right?
And we had a question from a CrossFitter that you've probably gotten this a lot. So chime in here because she was like, hey, I'm hearing a lot that if you do CrossFit, you shouldn't be doing keto. But I was doing it for aesthetic purposes, and I'm hearing that it could really damage my health or impact my performance. And it was like, well, really, we just got into a discussion in comments, like, what are your goals? What, are you training for performance? Are you just training for life? What are you doing aesthetically? Because it is very dependent. But to his point on the explosive movements, like there really hasn't been a lot of research long-term done other than endurance sports, because if you look at the fueling needs for like an explosive athlete vary greatly to the fueling needs for an endurance athlete, and we kind of got into this discussion a little bit of, well, it really comes down to metabolic flexibility depending on your activity from day to day or sport to sport or week to week. Right. If you're going out tomorrow for a 5K run and then Friday, 2 days later, you might be doing a heavy Metcon session. Those require two different fueling needs, predominantly. And so to his point, though, I think you absolutely will see a drop-off in performance on explosive lifts, sprinting, things that are kind of under that 8-rep range,
Yeah, most of what we see in the issues is in any glycolytic sports, right? Like if we're talking CrossFit, we're talking Orange Theory. And here's the thing too, right? Like I talk about these training systems, but we all know not everybody's doing CrossFit as most people think about CrossFit. Like our general pop people that are going in there, like, they're pushing themselves, but they're also not taking it to the intensities that these CrossFit Games athletes are going. So it is that it's considering the person, right? I think the biggest thing that we see is anybody that's doing CrossFit, Orange Theory, spin, like anything high intensity exercise. They're the ones that they might start off feeling okay because, again, going about that adaptation, like it's a new stimulus on your body. Like your body's going to adapt. Most of the time, people that are new to CrossFit and do keto going in, like 8 months maybe, they're okay. And then that's when they start feeling the crashes and all of that. And so I don't think that doing keto in a glycolytic setting, whether that's CrossFit or spin or Orange Theory, is a good idea long term. And let's be honest, most people do keto so that they can lose weight. There's better ways to lose weight without having to make yourself feel like shit every day.
Well, I love your message on quality because it's keto's definitely not like bacon and mayonnaise, but the quality of like
sure could be.
It could be, yeah. It'll fit the macros of keto, but it's certainly not on the quality side because like the quality of that fueling too is very different than what you see posted a lot day to day on Instagram of people, eating a keto diet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think my overall opinion on keto is that it's great for some people and it's not advised for other people. And a lot of it just literally depends on like, dude, tell me about your life. Like, tell me about everything that you've done, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. Like, I really need to ask so many questions before I can even give you an answer of yes, it's good or yes, it's bad. And then from there, it's like, what type of training are you doing? What are your goals? Like, because most of the time, if we want to accomplish goals, like I want to try to make it as easy as possible for clients to accomplish. Mm-hmm. So if I can choose out of all these different diets, why would I choose the hardest or one of the hardest ones to accomplish our goals with? Yeah. And then when I say it to them like that, they're like, okay, well, that makes sense. I'm like, dude, like, do you really think that you're going to dedicate your whole life to following this diet? Like, as soon as life gets hard, as soon as you get busy at work, as soon as you get stressed or whatever, like, you're going to fall off the wagon again. So it's like, I want to make that wagon like as easy as possible to get back on.
Yeah, that's a good point. So when working with athletes versus just the general population, what are some of the biggest differences in coaching them nutritionally that you do?
Athletes are challenging. Yeah, they're challenging. I think it depends on what athlete we're talking about. I mean, if we're talking like high level athlete, like a regional or games athlete, like I think that they're on a whole different level than like the people that are calling themselves athletes and trying to be an athlete. I mean, I want to be an athlete too, but I think the biggest difference is just in the way that coaching is done, because like Logan, for instance, like that kid is not going to log his food for me. Okay.
This is Logan Collins.
Yeah. He's not going to log his food for me. He trains 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day. The last thing that if I was a coach that was like, you need to log your food every single day for me, and if not, then this just isn't going to work. Well, he would quit, because like logging food for him is more of a stressor than anything else. And so like with him, I typically don't build like meal plans for people or anything like that. But like in his situation, somebody that's trying to stay really, really consistent, that's what we did. We just basically built out, like, essentially he was eating pretty much the same thing every single day, because again, like, he doesn't care. Like, his fuel requirements are so high, he just wants to hit his numbers and make sure that he does that. Like, he doesn't care about the way it tastes. Like, he just wants to like get it in and be done, like. And so I think it's just like looking into the individual and saying, hey, like, tell me what your non-negotiables are. Like let's meet halfway. Like, I might have the perfect plan for you, but this is where you are, and we got to kind of meet halfway. And so most of the athletes have, way more education in nutrition than, general populations that's coming to us. So, and another big piece too is the mindset of it. Mm-hmm. Like I have athletes that'll come and they're like, yeah, I mean, I want to get my nutrition dialed in, but like really what I want to do is just like have that like mindset talk every 2 weeks. So I think developing mindset is something that goes across the board with both. And I'm just more lenient with athletes. Like if Logan at the CrossFit Games, like we probably will have to throw down pizza like multiple days. Like he needs to eat 7, 8, 9, 10,000 calories on a CrossFit Games day. Like, please try to do that through chicken and broccoli, bro. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's like a Michael Phelps diet.
Yeah. And so I don't think that there's a lot of differences in athletes in them. I just think that like the biggest thing is athletes don't really, they have so many things going on outside of nutrition that like they just want you to tell them exactly what to do. And for athletes, I'm okay with that. But for other people, I'm not okay with that. I'm not just going to tell you what to do. I need to educate you so that you don't have to need me forever. Mm-hmm. Like we say all the time, we're like, I want this to be the last nutrition coach or nutrition program that you ever have to hire, because our job is to educate you on all of the science and then also educate you on all the different applications and strategies and all of these different things, and essentially just equip you with the tools to fill your nutrition tool belt for the rest of your life. And you can use those tools whenever you want. You can check in with MyFitnessPal whenever you want. You don't need to log your food every single day for the rest of your life. Like, you're going to be okay. I have clients that come and they're like, I've been logging my food 958 days in a row. And I'm like, all right, cool. First thing I want you to do is never log your food again for the rest of your life. Wow. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, I know, it's going to be okay. I promise. So people, we're humans, right? Like we put things in our head that like make us crazy sometimes. And I think sometimes people just need a coach to like tell them like, hey, like what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing. Like, don't like stop second guessing yourself, like trust in the process. So
do you find that like a lot of maybe even athletes too, but a lot of non-athletes, you touched on it when we first started chatting here, about like the association with food and like kind of morphing that association with food. And I'm curious, do you come across much where, and we've had this like brainstorm before, like over probably many times, but of, you know how when like us three right here, we're like, hey man, what sounds good to eat? And it's always like what sounds good, right? And so I had this theory, we've talked about it, like I said, and where if you like ask the question like, hey, what sounds good? It's almost like you're leading with like the pleasure portion of food, right? And not always what do I need? Like what does my body need to fuel? And not to say by any means that like food shouldn't taste great and that it would be sinful to always think what sounds good to eat, right?
Right.
But I find that a lot with people, right? Like it's that the questions you're asking about the food you are going to eat or want to eat, it's like we always revert to taste, not so much like what our bodies need.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. Yeah, I think, it's kind of like, I think the people that have like been an athlete at one time in their life, they've probably heard the thing of like, hey, like, the food that you put into your body is like what fuels your life, what fuels your body. And so, yeah, I think having that mindset shift is like, hey, food shouldn't always be looked at as how does it taste, but it also it should also be considered that what is this food that I'm putting into my body? Like, what does it actually do for me? Like, I have literally like the thing, I'm sure y'all, Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure y'all watched every last thing that came out, but it's like you hear him say it all the time. He's like, you're going to die. And I don't know about y'all, but that like really, really resonates me. It's like, yeah, like shit, like I'm going to die. Like you have one life, you have one opportunity, and religious or not, like it's up to you to realize that like the body that you're living in, it's like it's the only one that you get, and everything that you put into it like is going to basically, it's going to determine how you feel and how you look and how you perform, not just in the gym, but in life, and so that's been the biggest mindset shift for me, honestly, coming from an athlete, going back into like, a normal regular gym pot or whatever you want to call it. It's like I still have to carry that mindset through because that's the mindset that's allowed me to like live my life the way that I have. And I definitely see how easy it is to, think about how many people play sports in high school and then that's the last time that they were active, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to fall off. And that's why I think it's just, it all goes back to like the lifestyle that's lived.
Yeah. I like it. But sometimes you need something that tastes good.
You do, of course. Yeah, I'm not, you certainly don't want to eat like raw broccoli and, baked chicken breast every day. But, Rob Wolf's done a lot of great work on like hyperpalatability of foods, and how that is such an issue in like mainstream food in our society where everything's geared towards taste, and it hits on so many like pleasure centers in the brain that that's what you get conditioned to think about food of like I said, like what tastes good? Oh, what sound good to you today? It's like you're just searching for that, for that hit, It's like barbecue sauce doesn't sound as let's go do pizza, know, and then cascade later, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's just I tell clients all the time, like if they start saying like, oh my God, I'm so sick of eating this, and I'm like, yeah, because you literally think that the only healthy protein source is chicken. Like, do you know how many other things that we could be incorporating into your diet? It's like nutrition shouldn't, like eating healthy should not taste bad. Like, of course, meal prepping and reheating meals sometimes when you're really busy, like I get it. Like I don't like eating reheated food either, right? Like I would always rather just cook it fresh. But like there's just some times in our life where we need to prep and we need to be able to be really anywhere in the world and know how to eat for our bodies and for our goals. And that's why when people are like, oh, I went out to eat, so that meal just like, I just dropped off. And I was like, so when you go out to eat, that means you have to eat bad. Is that what that means?
Yep.
And they're like, well, I'm like, dude, you can go to anywhere and like literally get like, look for like a meat and a fish. And most of the times it comes with 2 sides. Just go double veggie with those sides. And like, I promise you, like, even if it's the shittiest quality food, like you'll be okay, So it's just balance, right? It's like we can sit here and like, I love nerding out and looking into it all, but I think like the statement to the world is just like, don't try to overcomplicate this. Like there's some foundational principles that need to be in play and that you need to start to somehow, some way get into a consistent routine with. And if not, you're always going to be the person that's hopping from, whatever diet to the next. It used to be low fat. Now it's low carb. It's going to be low protein. That's going to be the next thing.
Probably.
Protein is bad. That's what I can't wait to hear. Who's going to come out with that?
Yeah, we'll wait for it. All right, man. So you're 4 months into this thing. What's next? What are the next steps for you here?
Yeah. So I'm on a mission, man. I'm on a mission. I mean, I thought I was on a mission before, and now that I have a sonogram staring at me every day, I leveled up. Yeah. So the plan for me is I want to create an impact in this world. Like, I want to build a team of individuals. I know that I can't do it alone, right? So I want to, my sole focus is on building a team of individuals that not only are super smart and educated in nutrition, but like are able to relate with people and are transparent and honest and they live their life in a way that's it's not perfect. It's like I think a lot of people look at nutrition coaches and all these nutrition fitness gurus or whatever, and they think that they have it all figured out, and that's just not the truth. I just hired one of the RDs on our staff. I just hired her as my nutrition coach because I was like, look, like, I want to lead from the front. Like, it's one thing to just to sit here and preach about everybody else about nutrition. It's a whole other thing to live the life and live it day in and day out. So yeah,
it's awesome, man.
So where can people find out a little bit more about you? What's going on? All that good jazz.
Yeah. So if you just go on our website, it's justinmurphynutrition.com. I'm literally like on a mission to give out as much free content as possible. So we have everything in there, from nutrition seminars that have been recorded to let me help you start your diet to really anything and everything, a whole bunch of articles, testimonials, and then Instagram and Facebook's Justin Murphy Nutrition as well.
Sweet. Yeah, and we know some clients of yours, so we can be a testament to this man's work right here.
That's right.
Yeah. We actually were childhood best friends. We just didn't know it before this.
Exactly. Well, this has been awesome, man. Thanks for coming out. Really enjoyed it. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.